Ryan Caldwell pulled into the parking lot of Prestige Motors, the flagship luxury car dealership he had recently acquired in Scottsdale, Arizona. The afternoon sun cast a shimmering glow on the sleek, high-end vehicles parked at the front, their polished exteriors reflecting the desert heat. Unlike the usual clientele who arrived in designer suits or flashy sports cars, Ryan parked his modest SUV in an unmarked spot at the back. He stepped out dressed in a simple gray hoodie, slightly worn jeans and sneakers, an outfit deliberately chosen for the day. His goal was not to be recognized but to observe. He wanted to experience the dealership as an everyday customer, to see how the staff treated those who didn't immediately appear wealthy or prestigious. As he approached the glass doors, he caught sight of a small group of employees near the front desk, engaged in light conversation and laughter. The moment he stepped inside, the cool air-conditioned showroom enveloped him, carrying the distinct scent of fresh leather and waxed car interiors. It didn't take long for him to notice the subtle shift in energy. Conversations quieted and a few staff members exchanged quick glances, their eyes flickering toward his casual attire. The unspoken judgments were almost palpable, but Ryan remained composed. He wasn't here to make assumptions, he was here to see them unfold. Just as he was taking in the space, a woman emerged from across the showroom. Victoria, a middle-aged manager, walked towards him with a purposeful stride, her polished heels clicking against the tiled floor. Her expression was polite but guarded, and as she approached, Ryan could already sense that this interaction was going to be an interesting one. Victoria approached with an air of authority, her tailored blazer pristine, her clipboard clutched tightly as if it were a shield. She was experienced, confident, and accustomed to assessing customers at a glance, and in that glance Ryan could tell she had already made up her mind about him. "Excuse me," she said, her voice cool and professional. "Can I help you with something?" Ryan met her gaze with a calm smile. "Just here to look around," he replied casually, gesturing toward the sleek cars gleaming under the bright showroom lights. Victoria's eyes flicked from his hoodie to his sneakers before narrowing slightly. "Are you shopping for a car?" she asked, her tone carrying a thinly veiled skepticism. "Something like that," Ryan said, still smiling. Victoria pursed her lips before offering a polite but distant response. "Well, we cater to a very specific clientele here. Most of our inventory requires pre-qualification." Her words, though carefully chosen, carried an unmistakable undertone. Before Ryan could respond, another employee called out to her about a delivery. For a brief moment her attention wavered, but her gaze quickly snapped back, as if ensuring he didn't wander too far. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "You're assuming I'm not qualified?" The question caught Victoria off guard, but only for a moment. She quickly regained her composure, her posture stiffening. "I'm just trying to save you some time," she replied with a forced smile. "These vehicles start at 6 figures. Maybe I can direct you to—" Ryan let her words linger in the air, his expression unreadable. He glanced at one of the showroom's luxury coupes, his fingers brushing the polished door handle. "Nice car," he remarked. Victoria nodded. "It is. Perhaps when you're ready to make a serious inquiry we can set up an appointment. But for now I'll have to ask you not to touch the vehicles." Ryan considered her words, then stepped back. "All right," he said. "Let's hear it. What would you recommend for someone like me?" Victoria blinked, momentarily caught off guard by his directness. Then, regaining her professional demeanor, she offered a thin smile. "Maybe something more budget-friendly. I can give you directions to a dealership that specializes in pre-owned vehicles." Ryan smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. He had seen enough. "That's quite the assumption," he said softly. For a moment Victoria faltered, but she quickly straightened. "I'll be back with a list of options," she said briskly, turning away. Ryan watched her go, his reflection visible in the showroom's polished surfaces. This was going to be an interesting day. Ryan stood in the center of the showroom, his hands casually tucked into his pockets, his gaze sweeping across the lineup of pristine luxury cars. Around him, employees resumed their conversations, but he still caught the occasional glance in his direction, subtle, scrutinizing, as if they were trying to figure out why he was still there. The silent judgment didn't faze him. He had experienced it before. Moments later, Victoria returned, her clipboard clutched even tighter, her stride brisk, her smile forced. "All right," she said, stopping a few feet away. "I've compiled a few options that might be more suitable for your situation." Ryan tilted his head slightly. "My situation?" "Yes," Victoria replied, her tone clipped. She handed him a printout, a list of pre-owned vehicles, each with a modest price tag well below the dealership's usual offerings. These are more accessible models, she continued. Reliable, economical, and, well, practical. Ryan scanned the page without a word. A used sedan, an older SUV, a compact hybrid? He smirked slightly before folding the paper and tucking it into his pocket. Appreciate the effort, he said, his voice even. Victoria exhaled as if relieved the conversation was wrapping up. Look, she said, her voice lowering as if offering him a secret. I'm just trying to be realistic with you. Prestige Motors isn't for everyone. I don't want to waste your time. Ryan met her gaze, his expression unreadable. And what exactly makes you think I'm not your target customer? For the first time, Victoria hesitated, but only for a split second. I've been doing this a long time, she said, regaining her confidence. I can tell when someone's out of their depth. Ryan repeated the phrase slowly, almost as if tasting the words. Out of their depth. Interesting. There was a flicker of uncertainty in Victoria's eyes, but she pressed on. I'm just being honest, she said. It's better to be upfront than to let someone leave disappointed. Ryan let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head slightly. Honest, huh? I like honesty. He exhaled before speaking again. How about this? Let me speak to the owner. Think we can make that happen? Victoria's eyebrows shot up. The owner? That's right, Ryan said lightly. I'd like to have a word. She let out a tight, almost dismissive smile. Well, that's not possible today. The owner doesn't just drop by for casual visits, they're a busy person. I'm sure they are, Ryan said with a small nod. But maybe you could give them a call, let them know I'm here. I think they'd want to meet me. Victoria's polite mask began to slip, frustration creeping into her expression. Sir, I'm trying to be as polite as possible, but this is getting ridiculous. I have other customers to attend to. If you're serious about buying a car, we can schedule a meeting with a sales consultant. Otherwise, Ryan cut in smoothly, his voice still calm but carrying an unmistakable edge. Otherwise what? Victoria's expression hardened. Otherwise I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Silence fell over the showroom. The tension was thick, pressing against every person in the room. Ryan held her gaze for a long moment before sighing. Slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. All right, he said, scrolling through his contacts. I'll make the call myself. Victoria blinked, her brow furrowing as she watched Ryan lift his phone. What are you doing? She asked, her voice laced with growing impatience. Just calling the owner, Ryan replied casually, bringing the phone to his ear. Shouldn't take long. Around them, the energy in the showroom shifted. A few employees had stopped their conversations, subtly angling themselves to listen in. Victoria's confidence faltered, her irritation giving way to confusion. She opened her mouth to say something but hesitated. Ryan turned slightly away, speaking into the phone. Yeah, it's me. I'm at the dealership. Everything's fine, just a little misunderstanding. Could you let them know I'm here? His tone was easy, almost playful, but the weight of his words sent a ripple through the room. Ending the call, he slipped his phone back into his pocket and turned to Victoria. They'll be here shortly. Victoria's posture stiffened. Who did you just call? Ryan didn't answer right away. Instead, he let his gaze drift around the showroom, taking in the hushed whispers, the curious stares. Then he turned back to her with a slight smirk. Guess we'll find out. Minutes passed, but the room felt frozen in time. Victoria busied herself with her clipboard, though her movements were stiff and deliberate. Ryan, on the other hand, stood relaxed, his calm demeanor adding to the mounting tension. Then, the main doors swung open. A sharply dressed man in a navy suit entered, his polished shoes clicking against the tile floor. His expression was serious yet warm, and his eyes immediately locked onto Ryan. Mr. Caldwell, the man greeted with a wide smile, extending his hand. So good to see you. Ryan returned the handshake with a firm grip, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. Thanks for coming, Alex. Appreciate it. The room collectively stiffened. Victoria's clipboard nearly slipped from her hands as her eyes darted between Ryan and Alex, the dealership's regional director. Her confusion quickly morphed into visible alarm. Wait, Mr. Caldwell, she echoed, her voice uncertain. Alex turned to her, his friendly demeanor shifting into something more professional. Victoria, he said, his tone sharp. I see you've already met Mr. Caldwell. I didn't realize, Victoria stammered, her face paling. Alex's eyes flicked to Ryan, offering an apologetic look. I trust this wasn't your ideal welcome. Ryan raised a hand, stopping him. "It's all right, Alex. I think Victoria and I just got off on the wrong foot." His voice was calm, but the weight behind his words made everyone hang on to them. Victoria took a step back, gripping her clipboard like a lifeline. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." Ryan's expression remained composed. "Didn't know what?" he asked, his voice still gentle but firm. "That I could own a place like this? That someone like me might actually belong here?" Her eyes widened, and for a moment she seemed utterly lost for words. I didn't mean." Ryan held up a hand, cutting her off. "It's fine, Victoria, really." He took a step closer, lowering his voice just enough to make everyone lean in. "But let me ask you something. If I hadn't been the owner, would you have treated me any differently? Would you have given me the same respect as someone who walked in here wearing a suit and tie?" Silence. Victoria's lips parted, but nothing came out. The answer was already clear. Ryan nodded as if her silence was all he needed to hear. Then, turning to Alex, his tone shifted to one of authority. "Let's gather everyone in the conference room. I think it's time we had a little chat about how things are run around here." The employees of Prestige Motors shuffled into the sleek conference room, their usual confident demeanor replaced with an uneasy stillness. The space, designed to impress with its glass walls and modern furnishings, now felt stifling under the weight of anticipation. Victoria sat near the back, her usual poise gone, her clipboard clutched tightly as if it could shield her from what was about to come. At the head of the table, Ryan stood calm and collected, his presence commanding attention without needing to raise his voice. Beside him, Alex leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, observing the staff with a measured look. The murmurs of whispered conversations died down as Ryan cleared his throat, his gaze sweeping over the room. "Thank you all for joining me on such short notice," he began, his voice steady. "For those of you who don't know, my name is Ryan Caldwell, and as of last month, I'm the new owner of Prestige Motors." A few gasps rippled through the room, accompanied by shifting expressions, some surprised, some embarrassed, and others wary. Victoria sank lower in her chair, avoiding eye contact. "I came here today dressed casually for a reason," Ryan continued, his tone measured. "I wanted to see how this dealership operates when no one knows who I am. I wanted to experience what a potential customer might feel when they walk through these doors." His words settled over the room like a weight, and for a moment no one dared to speak. "What I experienced today was disappointing." His gaze flicked briefly toward Victoria before moving back to the group as a whole. "I wasn't judged for what I could bring to the table, I was judged for how I looked." He visibly tensed, but Ryan wasn't here to humiliate her, he was here to make a point. "This isn't just about me," he continued. "It's about every person who walks through those doors. Every customer who doesn't fit into someone's preconceived idea of what a luxury car buyer should look like." A younger sales associate hesitantly raised his hand. "Mr. Caldwell," he said nervously, "I think most of us try to treat customers fairly, but sometimes it's hard not to make assumptions." Ryan nodded thoughtfully. "I get that," he admitted. "We all have biases, whether we want to admit it or not. But here's the thing. It's not enough to try to be fair. We have to actively challenge those biases. We have to create an environment where everyone feels respected, regardless of their appearance, background, or anything else." A ripple of agreement moved through the room, though some faces remained hesitant. "This dealership has built a reputation for excellence," Ryan said, his voice firm. "But excellence isn't just about the cars we sell, it's about the experience we provide, and from now on that experience is going to be built on respect, inclusivity, and fairness." His eyes finally settled on Victoria. "Victoria," he said gently, but there was weight in his voice, "I want to give you the opportunity to speak. Is there anything you'd like to say?" All eyes turned to her. She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the clipboard. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I made a mistake," she admitted, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I misjudged you, and for that, I'm truly sorry." Ryan studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Thank you for saying that," he said. "I hope this experience serves as a reminder. Not just for you, but for all of us. Change starts with accountability." He turned back to the group. "Moving forward, we'll be implementing new training programs to ensure this dealership represents the values I believe in. Every customer deserves to be treated with dignity, no exceptions." Silence filled the room, broken only by the hum of the air conditioning. No one spoke, but the weight of Ryan's words lingered, pressing on everyone present. Finally, he let the quiet stretch long enough before nodding. "Good," he said. "I'm glad to see we're all on the same page. Change isn't always easy, but it's necessary, and this dealership is going to lead by example." As the weight of Ryan's words settled over the room, the employees of Prestige Motors sat in silence, absorbing what had just transpired. The atmosphere had shifted. Gone was the initial discomfort of an unexpected confrontation, replaced by a quiet acknowledgement that things had to change. Victoria, still seated near the back, was visibly shaken. Her usual confidence had crumbled, replaced with a humbled expression that was rare for someone so accustomed to being in control. Ryan let the silence linger, ensuring the message had fully settled before he spoke again. His voice was calm but resolute. "Let me make something clear," he said, his hands resting lightly on the edge of the table. "I didn't come here today to humiliate anyone. I came here to understand the culture I've inherited and to see where we need to improve." His eyes scanned the room, pausing briefly on Victoria before moving across the rest of the staff. "And now that I've seen it firsthand, I know exactly where we need to start." Victoria swallowed hard, her hands tightening in her lap. She knew this moment wasn't just about her, but she couldn't ignore the undeniable truth. Her actions had been at the center of today's lesson. Ryan took a step forward, his tone softening just enough to make it clear he wasn't looking to punish, but to teach. "Victoria," he said, addressing her directly, "you're an experienced manager. I have no doubt you've worked hard to get where you are, but today was a wake-up call. For you and for all of us." She finally lifted her gaze to meet his, her voice unsteady but sincere. "I understand," she said. "I was wrong, and I'll do whatever it takes to make this right." Ryan nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I believe in second chances," he said simply. "But accountability comes first. We'll be having a one-on-one meeting to discuss next steps. In the meantime, let's focus on moving forward." He turned back to the rest of the employees, his stance firm yet inviting. "We're not just selling cars here, we're building trust, creating relationships, and setting a standard of excellence. If you're on board with that, I'm here to support you every step of the way." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, louder and more genuine than before. The initial tension had given way to a sense of renewed purpose. Even Alex, who had remained near the door observing, gave a nod of approval. Ryan offered a faint smile, the kind that hinted at both relief and determination. "All right then," he said, taking a step back. "Let's get back to work. And remember, how we treat people matters more than anything we sell." As employees began to file out of the room, Ryan caught Victoria lingering near the door. She approached him hesitantly, her fingers twisting together in a rare show of nervousness. "Mr. Caldwell," she began, her voice low, I want to thank you for giving me a chance to do better. I won't let you down." Ryan studied her for a moment before responding, his voice steady but measured. "I hope you mean that, Victoria," he said. "Actions speak louder than words. But I believe people can change if they're willing to try." She nodded, her eyes filled with genuine intent. "I am." He watched her leave before turning to Alex. "Let's set up a meeting with the staff next week," he said. "I want to make sure everyone knows what's expected moving forward." Alex grinned, his respect for Ryan evident. "You got it, boss." Ryan stepped back into the showroom, his gaze sweeping over the gleaming cars reflecting the afternoon light. There was still a lot of work to be done, but for the first time that day, he felt optimistic. This wasn't just about running a dealership, it was about creating something bigger, a place where people were judged by their character, not their appearance. And Ryan was ready to lead the way. As Ryan stepped back into the showroom, the weight of the day's events settled over him. The gleaming cars, the polished floors, the scent of leather and wax, it all looked the same, but something had shifted. This wasn't just about running a dealership anymore, it was about redefining its culture. He had come here today expecting to see bias, but experiencing it firsthand had reaffirmed his purpose. The way Victoria had dismissed him, the way employees had subtly judged his appearance. These weren't just isolated incidents, they were symptoms of a larger issue, one that extended beyond just this dealership. It was about how people perceive worth, how assumptions dictate interactions, and how easy it is to exclude someone based on nothing but appearance. Alex walked up beside him, his expression thoughtful. "That was quite the wake-up call for everyone," he said. Ryan nodded. "It needed to happen," he replied. "If we're going to build something great here, it has to start with how we treat people." Alex exhaled, shaking his head. I've worked with Victoria for years. She's a good manager, but she's never been challenged like that before. I'm not the only one, Ryan said. It's easy to fall into habits, assuming who's a real customer, deciding who's worth your time. But that stops today. He turned back to Alex, his tone decisive. I want a meeting with the staff next week, training on customer experience, inclusivity, and professionalism. I want every single person here to understand that respect isn't optional, it's the foundation of this business. Alex gave a small nod of approval. That's the kind of leadership this place needs. Ryan glanced toward the employees moving about the showroom, now treating him with a newfound respect. Some looked embarrassed, others seemed eager to prove themselves, but most importantly there was a sense of change in the air. As he walked toward the exit, Victoria approached again, her usual confidence replaced by something more subdued. "Mr. Caldwell?" she said hesitantly. "I just wanted to say, I appreciate the second chance, and I promise I'll do better." Ryan studied her for a moment before giving a small nod. "I hope so, Victoria, because this isn't just about you or me, it's about the kind of place we want this to be." She nodded, her expression sincere. Stepping outside, Ryan took a deep breath, the warm Arizona air hitting him like a fresh start. There was still a long road ahead, but for the first time today, he felt something close to satisfaction. This wasn't just a dealership, it was a statement. And he was ready to make sure it lived up to everything it could be. A lesson in respect and true worth. Life teaches us that we should never judge a person by their appearance. Ryan Caldwell's story is a powerful reminder that wealth and success are not always displayed through expensive suits or luxury cars. True value lies in a person's character, their actions, and how they treat others. As we grow older, we realize that respect and kindness are far more valuable than status or material possessions. Every interaction we have is an opportunity to uplift, to understand, and to connect. When we judge too quickly, we not only risk disrespecting others, but we also close ourselves off from meaningful relationships and experiences. This story reminds us to treat everyone with dignity, regardless of how they look or where they come from. A kind word, a welcoming attitude, and an open heart can make a world of difference. In the end, life is not about what we own, but about the respect we show and the legacy we leave behind. By choosing fairness and understanding over assumptions, we create a world where people are valued for who they truly are,